Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking to you about my favorite subgenre of historical fiction. Oh, I'm so excited to get into it. I'm kind of bursting at the seams with excitement. I am going to tell you about this subgenre, give you recommendations around it. Most of these are my favorite books and I have featured prominent spots on my channel already, but I am so excited to talk about these books with you and why I like them. Also looking for recommendations in this genre, in this subgenre of historical fiction. So please, please, please leave recommendations down below. I would love to hear them from you or read them from you. And mostly I'm so excited to hang out and share these books with you. So if you're new and you're enjoying the vibe, please subscribe. And without any further rambling on, because I'm just too excited, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So what subgenre am I talking about? Well, the subgenre takes a couple of different forms, but in the broadest sense of the term, in the broadest sense of the word, or in the broadest sense, it is biographical fiction. It is taking a person and breathing life into that person, using the events and personality of that person to help shape the narrative, but ultimately telling their story. I love that kind of fiction. I think it's amazing. I'm going to start off with some, I guess, more basic examples, and then I will get into the more narrow category of biographical fiction that I love, that I eat up, that I want more of, and that it's just like the peak fiction to me. It is peak fiction. So in terms of biographical fiction, I have Catherine by Anya Seton. This is about Catherine Swynford and John of Gaunt, or the Duke of Lancaster, who are madly in love. There are some barriers in their way that are morally reprehensible in some ways. And it's interesting because as Catherine grows and changes throughout the novel, she has to confront those moral dilemmas in her life and the way that she goes about it and the way she reconciles it. I think this is a perfect book for fans of Jane Eyre. It's very Jane Eyre-esque, but also we see Catherine evolve past that young sort of naivety mindset into a grown woman. And so in some ways it's, I don't want to say more satisfying than Jane Eyre, because Jane Eyre she's on her own. She is peak fiction in a different way. But this is, she evolves, and there's something really satisfying about Catherine and the novel in that way. I also have The Mistress of the Ritz by Melanie Benjamin. This is about Claude and Blanche Ozello, and it's really about their marriage and the different stages their marriage takes, like the different forms of their marriage, when they're extremely close, when there are strained bits, and it's all taking place during the Nazi occupation in Paris, and Claude himself is the director of this hoity-toity, very fancy hotel, the Ritz. And so you see also their own moral dilemmas of having to serve Nazi soldiers in the Ritz and being put into that situation, and being upset about it, not agreeing with the war, but knowing that your job is to serve this clientele, and being put into that just awful situation. And then I love this book because the last quarter of it was just truly incredible, hard to put down, wonderful, love it so much. Okay, then we have The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. This is, it is very romantic. It is like romance X biographical fiction, a blend of the two. And we're following Mary Boleyn, which is the sister of Anne Boleyn, who had a relationship first with King Henry VIII. And then, and Mary Boleyn never became queen. So it's this interesting relationship where her sister, in some ways, is more successful than Mary herself, because Anne becomes queen. And just this sibling dynamic between not only Anne and Mary, but also George, I believe, their brother. The names are all muddled, but I believe George is their brother. And there's this really wonderful dynamic between the siblings and the way that they're playing the game at court. But really, it's about Mary. And you're following her journey, and she ends up becoming someone truly fascinating. Meanwhile, you're also getting this like sideways view into Anne Boleyn, which is just fantastic. Another one of these books would be The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore. This is about Tarrar, who is also known as the Glutton of Lyon. And it's about this character, this person in history who was known to have been able to eat so many things, just this insatiable appetite, but also ate things that you were not supposed to eat. And Blakemore, when I think it was the author's note, I'm not exactly sure, but I had read that Blakemore wanted to take the Glutton of Lyon's story and push it to its furthest logical conclusion. So it almost tiptoes into the realm of the magical, but it does not. It stays on this line of the magical. And so because she's playing with that line a little bit, there are some scenes that seem almost impossible, but also are very believable. And it's a really interesting story because of that line that she plays with. It's also dark and moody and just wonderful. And in a way, it's asking the question, like, is the monster inherent? Is it a moral or a character flaw of the human? Or does the society make the monster? And with that central question, it just ends up being a really, really fascinating read. I love this book. Other books that fit this criteria are Booth by Karen Joy Fowler, which is telling the story about John Wilkes Booth, the murderer of Abraham Lincoln, but it's less about him, which is what I quite liked, and it was more about his very eccentric Shakespearean family, which was so fascinating to read about. We also have White Houses by Amy Bloom, which is about the intimate friendship and relationship of Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hickok. This was, oh gosh, it really got to me emotionally. It was one of the saddest and most emotionally overwhelming books I've read this year, but also just very, very well done. I still think about this book, even though I read it several weeks ago. I think about this on an almost daily basis, partly because of the craft. Amy Bloom just moves in and out of time so seamlessly, almost in a dreamlike way, but also while slowly revealing more and more about Lorena Hickok and Eleanor Roosevelt, which is just deeply, deeply sad, and in a lot of ways they had a very tumultuous relationship. But beautiful, gosh, what a beautifully rendered story. Next is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This tells the story of Agnes, who is awaiting her beheading because of a murder she committed. We are in Iceland in the 1830s, and so the way they do it in Iceland in the 1830s is that Agnes is waiting with a family, and this family has some political ties, and so as part of their public duty, they are, holding her in their house. And while she's there, she's also confessing what happened with this murder, how it happened, what she's guilty of. She's essentially bearing her soul before this outcome takes place. And so we get this story. It is a dark book. It is a moody book. It is so, so good. Next up, we have Doc by Mary Doria Russell, which is about Doc Holliday. And it is going to tell you more about his early life. I like this book, but didn't love this book. The reason why I'm including it in this list of favorites, though it was beautifully rendered, and it really did flesh out a lot of who I now perceive Doc Holliday to be. The next book about the OK Corral, also by Mary Doria Russell, is supposed to be amazing. So I wanted to read the first part before getting to the second part, and it is known that the first part is not nearly as good as this second part, which is supposed to be utterly phenomenal. Finally, in terms of this more general biographical fiction genre that I quite like, is Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue, which is the story of Anne Lister's childhood and her first love. Anne Lister grew up in the 1800s, and she was known to have this diary that was written in a very uncrackable code. It took a very, very long time for anybody to crack this code, like several decades. Anyways, she kept this diary, but she was also openly queer, and that was very unusual for the time. And so she's this character that lives in history, but what Learned by Heart is really showing you her formative years and the first person she ever loved, and what that was like, and really giving her shape, especially in her younger years. And it's a really, really good book, and also, I don't know, poignantly sad, I would say. Now we are getting to like a subgenre of the subgenre, like a facet of this subgenre that I love, that I adore. Okay, all right, so we're getting into it. It is, I gotta stop myself from getting too excited. So it is when we have a character in history that we know of, that we understand, that we have in our public consciousness a story about them, that if you look that person up, there would be a narrative, a very common narrative about that person. And what the author does in their work of fiction about that character is to breathe new life into them, to shine a spotlight that makes us look at that character ever so slightly differently, and really works hard to kind of reshape the narrative around that person. So my favorite, absolute favorite series is not going to come to any surprise to you all about this person series, and it is Wolf Hall. This is the Wolf Hall series, the Thomas Cromwell series by Hilary Mantel. I love this series. So Thomas Cromwell is known to be a brute, a thug, the guy who does all of King Henry VIII's dirty deeds. He is just the scapegoat, the worm tongue, the villain of the story, okay? But what Hilary Mantel does is that she makes him the everyman. She shows that he is from nothing and has built his career and his wealth through hard work, and the reason why we readers have this perception about Thomas Cromwell is that he is a quiet, sort of very attentive person, and allows people to think whatever they want about him. So when someone is like, I feel like you've murdered somebody before, like let's say, I think that's actually in there, like I feel like you've killed a man. It's like he doesn't correct them. And so it's always out there like, has he killed a man? I think he has. And so he lets those rumors fly. He lets people take the narrative and run with it about him. And he's so confident in his own self, and in a lot of ways he's so focused on his work, what he wants to do in the world, that he just lets people have their own rumors about him, and he, I don't know, controls different things. So I love the Hilary Mantel's Thomas Cromwell. Like, I love him. He is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite character in all of literature. And I love what she did with him. Not only is what she does amazing, but it's also incredibly written. Like, Hilary Mantel, when she was alive, was probably the greatest living writer of our day. And just a brilliant writer. And you see her talent just pouring out of these novels. I love them and feel incredibly passionate about them. And if you have not tried Wolf Hall, I would say just give it a go. Just try it. You will not be disappointed. It is so good. Another type of this book, this reshaping the narrative, it actually comes in the form of the second book in a 3-book series, or you can read them out of order, I'm sure. But it is Wendy Holden's The Royal Governess, which is going to be about the governess of Queen Elizabeth II. She doesn't do as much of a reshaping in that book, but I will recommend that as a more straightforward narrative about the woman who was embedded in the royal family for a very long time. But the one she does such a good job with is what is it called? The Duchess. And this is about, oh my gosh, this is what happens. I get so excited that I forget people's names and all this. So anyways, it's about Wallis Simpson, who was a twice divorcee American woman who ends up getting married into the royal family. And the narrative about her is that she was a Nazi sympathizer and she really was on the wrong side of World War II. She was a ladder climber, that she was just an icky, awful, terrible woman. And what Wendy Holden does, and she does it to the best of her ability, that is so entertaining, is that she makes this woman really sympathetic, and she makes her connections feel very real and her motives feel very honest. And it was so good. It had just a wonderful narrative structure, and she does such a good job making Wallis Simpson seem very sympathetic, even though, she doesn't do quite as good of a job as Hilary Mantel. Hilary Mantel made me fall in love with Thomas Cromwell. I do not want to be best friends with Wallis Simpson. No, thank you. I will keep a very, very, very far distance away from me and her, but I do think that she did a really good job making the character of Wallis Simpson seem more sympathetic and just more I feel more compassionate towards this, this character. The final book is going to be one where it does the breathing new life into a person, but in a very different kind of way. And it is Antonio Scarati's M. Son of the Century. This is a translated work, translated from the Italian by Anne Milano Appel. Okay, if you all can help me find out when the next book is coming out, I would love that. This is a quartet, or it's going to be a quartet. I think that they're working on translating them into English, and I would really love the second book in the series, but every time I look it up, I don't know where it's at in terms of publication. But anyways, this is about Mussolini, and Scarati is not making Mussolini a more compassionate character. If anything, he is making Mussolini a more pathetic worm of a character. I feel like oh my gosh, everything about this is amazing. This book is just an amazing book. It is so good because Scarati does such a good job explaining, really showing the reader where the Italians were at after World War I, what made them vulnerable to fascism in the first place, how Mussolini was able to take a hold of the narrative and to spin a different narrative about him and his background, and the events that took place in order for Mussolini to be able to grab power in the time and place that he did. Okay, so, but the thing is that I feel like when we think about Mussolini, we think about this really powerful and evil person, and what Scarati does is that he makes him this pathetic worm of a being, that he is just an awful person, but he's also just human, that he is insecure, and actually very insecure, that he is not this all-powerful demagogue of a person, that he is just this worm-like creature that writhes on the ground that you can step on, and that because of circumstances and because of time and place, and also just the things that Mussolini had access to, that he was able to, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit that he's a worm of a person, but I feel like all of the power was taken away from him, and there's something really incredible about that I'm like, oh, Mussolini was just a man who happened in a lot of ways to have the right tools at the right place and time in order for him to grab power, and that he did these gutsy moves and they ended up working. And so it makes him more human, and there's something really powerful about that. And also it's just a fantastic read. I mean, it's such a good read. I wish more people read it. Anyways, I'm gonna go. That's it. That is it for my recommendations. I love this kind of thing. If you have a biographical fiction that you would like to recommend to me, that is amazing. I would love that. I would also love it if you recommended books that where authors take a figure and try and, I don't know, reshape the narrative around that person. Please let me know. I love this kind of thing. It's clearly something I'm incredibly passionate about. Okay, I've rambled on. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I will hope to see you again soon. Bye.